Karen's sneer could curdle milk. She stood over my hospital bed, her meaty fingers clutching the heart monitor's plug like a trophy, her sister Darlene egging her on with a cackle that echoed through the sterile room. I was nobody to them, just a frail, 70-year-old widower, hooked to machines that beeped my fragile existence into the world. My crime? A garden gnome in my yard that violated their precious HOA rules. They'd stormed into my hospital room, uninvited, their faces twisted with righteous fury, ready to teach me a lesson. Karen, the ringleader, was a mountain of a woman, her floral blouse straining against her bulk, her eyes glinting with the kind of arrogance that only comes from years of bullying neighbors into submission. Darlene, wiry and mean, hovered behind her, clutching a clipboard she'd snatched from the nurse's station, scribbling something with a gleeful smirk. "You think you can just ignore us, old man?" Karen spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "That tacky gnome of yours is an eyesore, and we're done asking nicely." She waved the unplugged cord in her hand, the heart monitor now silent, its screen black. My chest tightened, not just from fear, but from the sudden absence of the machine's rhythmic assurance. Darlene chimed in. "Maybe this'll make you listen." The room spun. I tried to speak, but my voice was a rasp, drowned by the blood pounding in my ears. The nurses, two young women who'd been checking my chart, froze at the door, their eyes wide with horror. One of them, a petite brunette named Lila, dropped her pen, her hand flying to her mouth. The other, a seasoned nurse called Maria, took a step forward, her voice trembling but firm. "What are you doing? Put that back now." Karen laughed, a guttural sound that filled the room like a storm cloud. "Relax, ladies. It's just a little wake-up call for Mr. Noncompliant here." She turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "You'll take that gnome down, or we'll make sure you regret it." I'd known Karen and Darlene for years, ever since I moved into the quiet cul-de-sac of Willow Creek. They were the self-appointed queens of the HOA, wielding their rulebook like a scepter, terrorizing anyone who dared plant a rosebush 1 inch too close to the sidewalk. My gnome, a gift from my late wife, was my quiet rebelliona chipped, cheerful statue that sat proudly in my garden, reminding me of her laugh. But to Karen and Darlene, it was a personal affront, a challenge to their authority. They'd sent letters, left voicemails, even banged on my door at 7 a.m. to lecture me. When I ignored them, they escalated, reporting me to the city, spreading rumors I was a hoarder. And now, here they were, in my hospital room, crossing a line I never imagined possible. Lila, the younger nurse, darted toward the monitor, her hands shaking as she tried to plug it back in. "This is life support equipment," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You can't just you know what you've done." Karen rolled her eyes, tossing her hair like a teenager caught stealing gum. "Oh, please. He's fine. Look at him, still breathing." She gestured at me dismissively, as if I were a prop in her personal drama. But I wasn't fine. My heart, already weakened from years of strain and a recent surgery, stuttered in my chest. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Maria, the older nurse, grabbed her phone, her fingers flying over the screen. "I'm calling security," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "And the police. You don't get to play God in here." Darlene, still clutching the clipboard, snorted. "Police? For what? Teaching this guy a lesson?" She scrawled something on the clipboard, her pen digging into the paper with malicious glee. I caught a glimpse of her handwriting, big, jagged letters spelling out Karen's crime caught, as if she thought this was all a game, a story they'd laugh about later at their HOA meetings. The truth was, Karen and Darlene didn't just want compliance, they wanted power. They thrived on control, on making people bend to their will. I'd seen them bully others' misses. Chun, who'd cried when they fined her for a non-approved mailbox. Young Tim, who'd moved away after they harassed him over his basketball hoop. But this? Unplugging my heart monitor? This wasn't just cruelty, it was reckless, dangerous, a step too far even for them. Security arrived first, two burly men in navy uniforms who filled the doorway. "Ma'am, step away from the patient." One of them barked at Karen. She bristled, her face reddening. "Do you know who I am?" I'm the president of the Willow Creek HOA. This man is in violation of our bylaws." Her voice rose to a screech, but the guards weren't impressed. They moved toward her, their hands outstretched, ready to escort her out. Lila had managed to reconnect the monitor, and the familiar beep-beep filled the room again, a lifeline tethering me back to reality. My breathing steadied, but my anger didn't. I looked at Karen, her smugness cracking as the reality of her actions sank in. "You think you're untouchable," I whispered, my voice hoarse but steady. "But you're not." The police arrived minutes later, their radios crackling as they took statements. Maria, her face a mask of controlled fury, explained what had happened, pointing to the monitor and the dangling cord. Lila, still shaken, corroborated every detail. Karen and Darlene, now cornered, started to backpedal. "It was a joke," Darlene stammered, her bravado crumbling. "We didn't mean any harm." Karen, clutching the clipboard like a shield, muttered, "He's making it sound worse than it is." But the officers weren't buying it. Tampering with medical equipment life support, no less wasn't a prank. It was a felony. As they cuffed Karen, her face contorted in disbelief. "A felony? For a gnome?" she shrieked, as if the absurdity of her own actions hadn't dawned on her. Darlene, pale and silent, followed her sister, the clipboard slipping from her hands and landing on the floor with a soft thud. The aftermath was a blur. The hospital filed charges, and the story spread like wildfire through Willow Creek. The HOA was disbanded within weeks, its members too embarrassed to defend the sisters' actions. Karen and Darlene faced trial, their arrogance replaced by panic as they realized the gravity of their mistake. The judge didn't mince words. "Your sense of entitlement endangered a man's life. There are consequences for that." They were sentenced to 3 years, a punishment that felt both harsh and just. For me, recovery was slow. The gnome stayed in my garden, a quiet symbol of defiance. Neighbors I had barely spoken to before started stopping by, bringing casseroles and stories of their own run-ins with the sisters. Mrs. Chun planted a flamingo in her yard, a wink at me from across the street. Tim, now living in a new town, sent a card with a photo of his new basketball hoop. Karen and Darlene's downfall wasn't just about justicide, was a reminder. Power, when wielded without empathy, turns to poison. They thought they could control everyone, but in the end, they only destroyed themselves. I'd outlasted them, not because I was stronger, but because I'd held on to something they'd never understand: dignity. As I sat in my garden, the gnome's chipped smile catching the sunlight, I felt a weight lift. The beeping of the heart monitor was a distant memory, replaced by the quiet hum of a neighborhood free from their tyranny. The end.